Welcome to the Containment Zone. Some anomalies are static, some demand your gaze, and some, like SCP-093, require your reflection. It is a disk, roughly 7 centimeters in diameter, polished, smooth, mirror-like, color, blood red. It doesn't speak, doesn't emit heat, but if you hold it, it pulls. Not your body, not your mind, but your guilt. SCP-093 responds to mirrors. When placed against one, it opens something not quite dimensional, but personal. The door does not lead to a hallway, not a world. It leads to a version of you, filtered through regret, loss, and something that watches from the horizon. And once you step through, you're no longer alone in what you thought was your reflection. The discovery of SCP-093 was almost accidental. It was recovered from the ruins of a farmhouse in southern Utah, placed in a makeshift shrine surrounded by broken mirrors and rotted fruit. The previous occupant had carved a message into the floorboards beneath it. It only shows you what you lost. That's why it hurts. When Foundation personnel brought SCP-93 to Site-17, it resisted containment. Not violently, not physically, emotionally. It moved on its own, always toward reflective surfaces. It vibrated in the presence of guilt. Personnel who handled it reported migraines, flashes of memory, and the overwhelming urge to find something unfinished. Standard containment was abandoned. Instead, a protocol was designed. The Mirror Activation Test, a vertical mirror. SCP-093 pressed against it, a tether secured to the subject's back. Audio and video feed live, then entry. What appeared on the other side was not a mirror. It was a landscape, dry, sun-bleached, infinite, and in the distance, always visible. A red sun hung over dark water. This was not Earth, but it wasn't alien either. It looked like a version of it, collapsed, frozen mid-apocalypse, and every team sent through returned altered. Not always physically, but mentally. One subject said, "The place, it knew me. It showed me what I did. Or maybe what I didn't do. I'm not sure which hurts more." And then they stopped sleeping. Because the moment their eyes closed, they were back there. The first exploration through the mirror, designated Trial Alpha, revealed what looked like a coastal village. Wooden homes scorched by sun, windless streets covered in dry salt, and statues. Dozens of them. Figures frozen in expressions of grief, eyes carved into their chests, mouths stretched wide as if still mid-scream. The subject's feed, Agent Kalen Durst, recorded his voice trembling as he passed through the village. They're not stone, they're melted, like they were reaching for something, and never made it. Inside the first building, they found mirrors, shattered, warped, blackened like frostbite. On the walls, symbols etched in languages unknown, yet eerily intuitive, as if the meaning was felt, not read. One message translated loosely to, "We couldn't bear to look anymore." Then came the sound, not screaming, not whispering, a choral hum, deep and constant, bleeding through the audio like static made from sorrow. It came from the church, at the center of town. Durst approached alone. No motion, no visible entities. But the humming grew louder with every step, until the door creaked open on its own. Inside, an altar. Beneath it, a mirror, perfectly intact. And in that mirror, Durst didn't see himself. He saw a younger version, his uniform intact, his face clean. And beside that reflection stood a child, holding his hand. When Command asked what he was seeing, Durst didn't answer. He just whispered, "I'm sorry." Then he removed his tether. The feed went dark. When recovery teams pulled him back through the portal, 5 minutes later, Durst's face was stained with tears. But the worst part wasn't what he said. It was what he didn't. He never spoke again, and when he passed, 12 hours later, seemingly from exhaustion, his final act was to draw a crude image in the condensation on his observation cell window. A circle, with a vertical line cutting through it, the same symbol carved into every wall of the village, and beneath it, an open eye. SCP-093 does not retain a fixed color. When not held, it defaults to red, deep, saturated, and reflective like blood in still water. But once touched, it shifts to blue, green, violet, orange. Each hue corresponds to a different emotional profile in the handler: guilt, anger, yearning, repression. Each color opens a different world, not alternate dimensions in the scientific sense, but tailored landscapes, designed not for the subject's body, but for their conscience. The Blue Trial sent a veteran field operative through. He emerged into a city drowned in perpetual twilight, empty, but watched. Surveillance equipment tracked his every move. Statues turned when he wasn't looking, and in the center of the plaza, he found a monument, a gravestone, with his name on it. When he returned, he refused debriefing, said nothing, burned his own personnel file in the incinerator. 2 days later, he left Site-17 and was never seen again. The Green Trial revealed something different. The subject stepped into a landscape filled with growth. Ruined temples overrun with vines, sunlight piercing through fractured ceilings. But the greenery moved. It reacted to the subject's breath, his heartbeat, his thoughts. It whispered in languages he almost understood. "We waited for you." The longer he remained, the more the vegetation seemed to emulate him. Growing eyes, mouths, scars. By the end of the mission, the subject had collapsed, muttering, "It knows me. It's made of everything I never said." When extracted, blood samples showed traces of non-human DNA. Something was merging, slowly, but surely. Each color isn't just a frequency. It's a mirror shard, one that reflects what you suppress. And the further you go into the world it opens, the more you realize that it's not the place that's dangerous. It's the version of you that it's been waiting to show. The final documented activation was unlike the others. It occurred unexpectedly. During an evaluation session, SCP-093 was handled by a new subject, Dr. Simon Greaves, a psychologist assigned to post-mission trauma interviews. The object turned white, not glowing, not pure, white like dry ash, white like the paper left behind after burning a page. This color had never been recorded. A mirror was positioned. Greaves insisted on entry. He was warned. He only said, "It wants someone who understands reflection." The White Trial began. What the feed showed was not a landscape, not ruins, not sky. It was a hallway, endless, sterile, clinically perfect. Walls were white, floors white, but lined with mirrors every few meters. Each mirror showed Greaves walking, but in every reflection, he was different, older, younger, wounded, smiling. In one, he held a child's hand. In another, he wore a Foundation security uniform. In a third, he had no face at all. He began to speak softly. "These are all the men I could have been." Then, silence. He stopped at a door. There were no handles, just a symbol etched into the surface, a circle with a vertical line. and an open eye. The door opened on its own. Inside, a chair, facing a mirror, but this time, no reflection, just the room and the sense that someone else was sitting there. Just outside the frame, Greaves approached. He whispered something inaudible, and then he smiled. For the first time on record, the transmission flickered, and SCP-093 fell out of the mirror. No sign of Greaves, but etched into the back of the object, now visible for the first time. You do not escape guilt, you become it. The Foundation no longer refers to SCP-93 as an object, not internally, not among the few who've been through it. They call it the Judgment Disc, because SCP-093 doesn't lead to a place. It leads to a reckoning. It doesn't respond to curiosity, only to guilt. Personnel with no unresolved trauma, it doesn't activate. No color, no pull. But for those carrying something buried, regret, failure, grief, it glows. Each color acts as a psychological key, a wavelength of memory, not to open a dimension, but to force confrontation. Subjects who return describe the experience as hyper-real. Time dilates, distance warps, their own thoughts bleed into the world around them. Walls display memories, buildings echo past arguments, skylines align with personal loss. One subject, after the Violet trial, wrote, "It didn't show me another world. It showed me the one I would have created if I'd made different choices." Symbolic analysis suggests SCP-093's environments may be projections generated by the user's own mind, but augmented by a central intelligence, an observer, or maybe a judge. The circle, the line, the eye. That symbol appears everywhere within SCP-093's worlds. It may represent the entity that guides the anomaly's mechanism, not a deity, not a machine, but a lens, something that filters truth through reflection. A metaphysical process, not punishment, not redemption, just understanding. And once you understand, the landscape crumbles, the portal opens, and you return. But never unchanged. Some become silent, some confess to things no one knew. One subject walked into a mirror without the disc and never came out, because once you've seen who you could have been, you may not want to go back to who you are. SCP-093 is secured in a reinforced containment locker surrounded by black fabric, far from any reflective surface, but it doesn't need a mirror to watch you, because SCP-093 doesn't reflect light. It reflects loss, and in every person who's held it, there's been something left unfinished, some grief unspoken, some mistake uncorrected. And that's what it feeds on. Not pain, not shame, the question, what would I be if I had done something differently? It never forces, it never tricks. It simply offers a door made from your reflection. And when you walk through, you see not a parallel world, but a map of the decisions you never made. Because SCP-093 isn't an anomaly, it's a mirror you can't walk away from. And if it ever changes color in your hand, if it ever pulls you toward glass, know this: it isn't punishing you. It's waiting for you to admit what you already know. Thank you for entering another anomaly in the Containment Zone. And if one day you find a red disc resting quietly in the corner of a mirror, don't touch it, because it already knows who you are beneath the surface.